y bendiciones. I am Melody Capote, Executive Director of the Caribbean Cultural Center, African Diaspora Institute. I am the daughter of Laura and Alberto Moreno, mother to Jovan, Kailani, and Ariane, and goddaughter, ahijada, of Marta Moreno Vega, Baba Funke, the founder of the Caribbean Cultural Center, African Diaspora Institute. Bendición, madrina. Bendición to my elders. I am Omo Ochun. The Caribbean Cultural Center is a cultural organization dedicated to advancing equity, racial and social justice for African descendant people globally. Now in 2026, we are marking our 50th anniversary year, and we are asking you to join us in the celebration. We have great programs planned throughout the year, including the upcoming Violines para Ochun, and a fundraising campaign that will require each of you to support us. It is a matter of survival and love for our organization. And so, as the call and response community that we are, know that we will be calling on you for support. And our hope is that you will respond with a resounding yes to making donations of money and volunteering your time. The work we do has never been easy. Cultural rights, the fight for liberation, the reclaiming of our land, the demand for justice and equity, and the intentional recognition of our spiritual practices and sacred traditions are often met with rejections by the philanthropic sector. And yet here we stand, presenting programs like tonight's Letra del Año, because it is our responsibility to do so. And the answer to the call from our communities, you. We must remember the importance of coming together for our collective ashe and for collective ebos. There is an absolute need for us to gather, plan, organize, and strategize for our collective survival. In this very challenging political climate, we must call upon our ancestors and each other and remember the models of survival they created in the face of adversity and in the many attempts to destroy and erase us. The cabildos, the quilombos, the palmares, the maroon societies, the underground railroads, the prayers, the silence, the ebos. We need ongoing collective ebos. Yes, collective ebos. We welcome you this evening to this year's Letra del Año, a conversation with traditional leaders that we highly respect and honor. It is presented to our community as a roadmap and guide for the coming year. We encourage you to listen, really listen, and heed the advice and warnings offered because we must. Again, thank you for being with us tonight, and know that we are going to call upon you throughout the year to join us in celebration, in resistance, and reclamation.
Welcome. Bendiciones, Boruboya y Bocheche, bendición santeros, mayores, menores, Iworo, Aboricha, and all of our community joining us from across the world. We invite you actually as we begin to tell us in the chat what city, what state, what country you're joining us from. We get tons of requests and questions and inquiries from across the community of like, well, which letra do I follow? And which is the most important? And which is the most accurate? Well, in fact, as you know, and we have said to you many times before, and for those of you that are joining us for the first time, we will say to you again, the letra that is most important for each of us is our very own letra. So that might be the letras that you have in your itang. That might be the letras that you receive in your readings from the year, either from your oluwos or from your godparents who read you with the Merindilogung, right? Your personal letter is your letter. The reason that the Caribbean Cultural Center continues to host this particular conversation is because there are communities of people, and in the case of the Letra de la Casona, the intention and the gathering and the many rituals that precede the pulling of this odu is intended to read the climate, the temperature, and sort of all of the conditions that we're going to be facing as a human family, as a globe, as an earth, as a planet, as a whole world. And so when you read the Letra del Año from La Casona, it says, Para Cuba y el mundo. So this is a letter that certainly will forecast the conditions of Cuba, the physical place where it is sort of pulled, and its intention is that it is for the world. That said, there are many houses across the diaspora that don't necessarily follow these letters. One of the trends that we have found in our discussions is that often the conditions, the warnings, the forecasts that we've received in these letras have actually been quite accurate in helping to sort of forecast the things that we're going to confront in the year ahead. So whether you approach this as an academic exercise or whether you approach this as a religious sort of a point of religious awareness, a religious dialogue, we encourage you to enter this discussion with curiosity, with respect, and also with openness to receive the word of Ifa from across many communities, beginning in Cuba, and then we'll travel to New Jersey and Puerto Rico, and we'll talk a little bit about Miami, which is one of the other very prominent letters pulled in the United States. And then we'll urge you to draw your own conclusions, defer to your elders, and also for those of you, we're aware that there are many people in our community who do not yet have elders, right? Simply hope that you'll take this as a seed of consciousness as you approach the year ahead. We've already have one question in the chat. What's the sign? I didn't get it. So, La Casona de Miguel Febles, La Casona del 10 de Octubre, pulled, which is again the oldest letter, pulled Ofun Nabe, which is Ofun Eyogbe, Ogunda Masa, which is Ogunda Osa, and Baba Eyogbe, which is Eyogbe Meyi. We have the great privilege and honor of having Baba John, who is not only one of our eldest Oluwos, but was actually historically one of our scribes, right? One of our scribes in the diaspora in the United States, who through his Ifa house was able to carry the word from Cuba to the rest of us. Bring us into this conversation. What are these Odu telling us about 2026?
The letters of the year from Cuba. Basically, it sets the tone for everything that's going on right now. You know, all that Ogunda, like a hotbed down there in the Caribbean. And then 48 hours later, after the letters came out, boom, they invaded Venezuela. So that told you everything right there. Ray Charles could read that one. So, like I said, you know, in the beginning, my motto is whether you're in the religion or you're not in the religion, do a bow, lay low. Bottom line, do some kind of cleaning, even if it's go to church, you know, some white flowers and clean yourself, light a candle and pray. But do some kind of thing. You have to take care of you and yours. That's basically what all the letters are saying nowadays. Respect. Definitely respect. Respect your elders in the religion. Respect your elders in your family. Respect the elders in the community. We have to do things collectively, whether we had discussed prior in terms of collectively, yes, we have to do things. We have to clean ourselves. That's the only way you're going to really get over the way things are now. As we were talking earlier, things are tight. You know, things are very tight. You know, and these letters here that we had just talked about, like I said, that whole thing talks about take care of you and yours. It's very, very important. Take care of you and yours. When you get letters like a Trupa, you know, this is where you got to take care of your health. This is where the woman has to take care of her health, got to take care of her insides and stuff like that. Get your two of the Nikos and, you know, you get the yoke base. You have to take care of your health. Okay? Egun is running rampant. Egun ran rampant sure enough for 2025, especially for us in our camp. It jumped off crazy in the beginning, And then everything was smooth for the rest of the year. And then as we coming into the holidays, boom, then everybody started dropping like flies. All kind of freak accidents. And it wasn't people dying of old age. It was young people. So that tells you something.
As time goes by and each community comes up with a letter of the year, there causes some confusion, understandably. But ultimately, and I hope it's been mentioned in some kind of way, the most important reading is between you and your padrino, you and the person, when that person sits down in front of you. That's the most important. But not everybody gets that opportunity, and so we get the letter of the year from Cuba. One of the things that come out in our house, which is Bonifacio Valdez in New Jersey, is an Odu that speaks Osaude, which speaks about knowing the value of things. We have to look for a general truth that works for everyone. And one of the important things in life is to be able to evaluate things, not by people who study Osaude say that many people know the price of things, but they don't know the value of things. And that very important issue comes up in every situation, whether it's from country to country or person to person. We sometimes give a lot of issue to people who have and people who don't have. And what this Odu says to you is that you have to learn, we have to share, we have to give, but we have to have value in what we're giving. A person who doesn't know the value of what they have will give it away right away. A person who believes that they have something very important or tend to hold on to it. The new year is a time of renewal. It's a time when everyone starts to say, we could do better. And that's what the importance of the Odus that come out each year. It brings you closer to your family. It says, let me go and see and talk to my padrino. Let me talk to the elders and see how we can make this coming year a little better. And with that, we study and we must acknowledge the different Odus that come out in different areas. Whether it's Miami, I'm interested. I want to know. Whether it's Puerto Rico, I'm interested. Brazil, and obviously here in New York, we have our special issues. And as on a personal level, it's my responsibility to help my, I almost said children, but my ahijados, my godchildren, to work better. And I do see improvement. I'm glad, but unity as posited in Ejiogbe is very important. We must come together because in the unity is strength.
Even though Ogun Namasa talks about their strength in unity, it also talks about the loss of purpose. We call Ogun Namasa Ogun Atravesado, which means there's a unique story within that says where Ogun lost the purpose. He did not want to walk the road of life, so he embarked in the road of death, and that's very significant because Ogun is governing. So it's very important to have a very clear head that our decisions and everything that we do embraces life and protects life, and it's not a crash course into destruction. Ogun, we associate him with being like a heavy warrior, but it's also the one who creates a path where it doesn't exist. It creates something new. So it's gonna be very interesting how all of this manifests because he's the path maker. From cosmic, from the celestial realm to the earth, he created the path that the Irumiles use to come into earth, and he also is the one who creates that path in the mountain. So that this is something that is not a small thing. And then with Eyobe, it talks about the importance of using the head so our head does not roll on the ground. Because originally, Ori was rolling. It did not have its place in the body. And it was through divination, through Orula, that he did it both and followed the advice of Orula, where he became the head of things. And that is why, when we do ceremonies within the context of FIFA, everybody has to kneel in a unique way, like the Muslims do, where we put the head on the ground, and that is just a recognition of that moment of gratitude when the head was on the ground, and it got out of the ground, and it has stayed off the ground because of that. So it's importance of that reverence, the humbleness, that strong connection is gonna be extremely important. On a side note, of Funadbe, and now with the information I heard about Osa Ore, a lot of health issues, but particularly the stomach, the intestines, is something that needs to be very we have to be very mindful within that.
So it's important to take care of the health. All the letters talk about the stomach, the alcohol, that we need to be careful because there are transformation in our mind. But there are a patakin in Ogunda Oche in Miami that the father didn't recognize his own son, and he fought with the son because he went to the village with the mission to exterminate everyone, but he fall in love with a woman that was Ochun, and they had a relationship, and he left, but he didn't know that she was pregnant. So when Olofi saw that in that village always were people, he sent back Ogun over there, and he started to fight with his own son that he didn't know. So Ochun, she went over there and he said, you cannot fight with him because he's your son, and also explain her son to you. So this is the Odun Ogunda Che that talk about violence in the family. So it's important that the parents know the child, to have communication in both areas, not just the parent, also the child. Sometimes your child goes to study, for example, you live in New York and your child goes to Miami, and he's 16, 17 years old, and he start a life that you don't know because you are living in New York. So when your child come back, it's totally different, and start the confrontation between parents and children. So this year is important also to develop the communication. When we are talking about Ori, we need to fit this with knowledge. So if you know, because no one want to talk about himself, but everyone knows his skills. So if you know that you have to improve something in your life to get a better position in your job or in life, just do it because it's something that you know.
So I'd like to start by making comparison, right, with all three of the Odus. So I will start with the theme here. We see, while we have in La Casona, Ogun is the main Orisha ruling. We also have in the Asunción Cultural, Ogun is ruling. But in Palmiras, they have Obatala or Oshun ruling. However, the Odu reflects Ogun, which is Ogun Dairoso. And the prophecy was, Ireuwo Elese Orumila, the blessing of prosperity monetarily. Usually, when we talk about Owo, from the Yoruba word Lowo, our hands, that's where it comes from. The blessing of prosperity, right? That Orumila is trying to give us, right? So it seems here, this Odu, in comparison with the rest of them, we have, like I said, a theme, and that theme is Ogun. Okay, so we take Ogun and we take the name of the Orisha and we look for the etymology of the word. O, who, Gun conquers, wins, or stabs. All right, that's the Orisha, the force that we seem to be playing with here, via the Odu with Ogun Dairoso and Palmyra, plus the Orishas who are ruling in the other two Odus. Okay, now when we look at Ogun, many people see Ogun as a force, a brute force. Okay, but Ogun is a lot more than that. Now we talk about the world, right? Right now we are actually living in real time what the Ogun Da, okay, the which means Ogun is good. The idea of Ogun's energy, we're living that right now. Why? Well, we're dealing with wars, we're dealing with conflicts, we're dealing with bloodshed. Okay, Ogun is the Orisha who represents iron. Iron was melted in the Iron Age, and the first thing that man made was a weapon. And the first thing that man did with that weapon was kill another man. So we're seeing that energy come forth in front of us. We're seeing the aggression from different people in the world and different political parties and different scenarios. We're seeing the misunderstandings, right? And when we play around with all three of these odus, okay, one of the biggest themes is we need to be prepared for all things to come. Ogundairoso, one of the proverbs with Ogundairoso, false testaments, traps, and being misled. Okay. One of the lessons in Proverbs with Ofunabe, okay, loss due to not taking care of things, making sure that a fence is strong when we go to pull the ivy off of it. Think about that. Make sure your fence is strong before you go pull the ivy off of it. So that means it's a consciousness. We have to make sure before we make a move, are we prepared to make that move in our lives? Are our surroundings ready to embrace whatever we're about to do? Okay, because if we're going to pull that ivy off the fence, we have to make sure that the fence is strong. Okay, so it's being prepared, right? It's being prepared. In the Asunción Cultural, we have Ogunda Trupo. One of the proverbs with Ogunda Trupo that lends itself to this is only an intelligent man can save himself from death. Only an intelligent man can save himself from death. Okay. Again, before we make decisions, before we pull that vine, that ivy off the fence. Okay. Let us make sure that we're looking at and examining all angles of everything that we're doing in life and the decisions that we're going to make. Okay. Because when the Iron Age came, like I said, and they began to melt metal. Okay. Yes, we made farming tools. Yes, other devices were made to make our lives easier. But the first thing that man made was something to stab the other guy, all right, and to take what is his or what was hers. So we have to begin to ask ourselves, are we going to continue sitting in the same vicious circle? Alcohol is throughout all three of these odus, the consumption of alcohol. Alcohol changes personalities. They say a drunk usually tells the truth, right? So sometimes we have to start being honest with ourselves. We have to start being a little bit more reflective, the world in general, right? To be able to sustain what everything that's going on right now in the world, okay? And we cannot be overly emotional. Why? Because again, man melted iron, got angry, stabbed the other guy, okay? Alcohol. And Ofun, right? And Ofunabe talks about creation, where Obatala created the world with two gourds, right? So one of the many patakis we all talk about in the different manifestations of Ofun is the fact that Obatala was drinking when he was creating humanity. Obatala was drinking because he was frustrated. He was frustrated that he couldn't put the human figure together. He got frustrated. So he began to sip, and before you know it, he couldn't see properly, and some eyes went over here, so, the mouth was a little twisted, organs were missing. Okay, so we have to be careful, right, that we don't get too emotional with things and make the situation worse.
To address kind of what was asked in terms of the political strata, two of the things that this Odu for Ofunabe talks about is making sure that we have alignment with the people and the things that we want to, so that the alignment and the allegiance that we have is grounded in what our true belief is. Because what we can do is we can kind of get caught up in the world, and there could be a lot of mistaken identity that happens in the process. So the Odu is telling us, what do you stand for? What do you have your allegiance and your your alignment to in such a way that is positive, right? Because, you know, the other aspect of that can be something that's not as positive. So it's talking about being rooted in self. With all that being said, I think that the biggest message that Ifa is telling us is to look at ourselves. One of the things that we spoke about briefly was the prophecy, which is loss. And so if we're going to lose anything, a lot of the stories and a lot of the messages have a lot to do with negative attributes that us as humans tend to garner within misguided feelings, jealousy, having the envy, not, you know, the infighting. A lot of what happens in this Odu is, you know, who has the seniority, who has the right, and the imposing of that. I believe this, so therefore I have to now dominate this. And so Ifa is saying here that only brings loss. So before we think about the world, we have to think about our consciousness, ourselves. We have to look within, and we have to purify our mind. We have to purify our habits and our ways. If there's going to be any loss, it should be the loss of jealousy. It should be the loss of negative thinking. It should be the loss of harming. All of these things should be the things that we lose in the process.
We are in a time, though, in our history where folks, I want to encourage folks to not be driven by fear, right? We don't want our joy stolen, like everything else that's been taken from us. When I speak to a collective Ashe, and I speak to a collective Ebo, it's that we are sacred beings. We have a sacred energy that many of us forget to tap. And I'm simply asking for all of us to take a moment in this time where we are afraid. I mean, it's no longer about, you know, will they or might they come to our doors? We're seeing doors being torn down, and folks come, you know, none of us is feeling safe, even in our own homes. So what do we do on a platform like this one, where there are folks joining us internationally, where we can take a moment? What is the Omitutu? What is prayer? What is acknowledging Egun? What is acknowledging our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents, right? Taking a moment to say, while we're praying at our altars and praying to our Egun, we're praying for the world. We keep talking about community. We keep talking about unity. We keep talking about the importance of coming together as a fuller community. That is the Ebo I'm speaking to. I'm not saying let's all get together at the center and go and do some massive something at the ocean or the river. But certainly what we can do as individuals to protect ourselves, our homes, our children, our families, our futures, as a community is what I'm speaking to.
We're very grateful for you joining us, for your support of the center, especially this year, its 50th year. And my prayer for all of you is that you always find the people and conditions that will serve your highest good. So may each of you and everyone that you touch when you leave here help you to find your highest good, and may you do the same for them. Have a very good night, and thank you especially to those of you who joined us from across the world.